Damien.
Roger, how are you?
How you doing, dude?
I'm very, very good.
Excellent.
It is wonderful to talk to you. I'm
Wonderful to be heard.
we've gone back and forward a couple of times with your agency to try and organise a call, so it's great to finally have a chat.
Oh, good. Okay. I know how those things can go.
Yeah,
Hopefully
yeah,
it's
yeah. It was just a matter of just hooking up the time. All my team's based in LA, but I'm actually based in Melbourne, Australia. So sometimes it's hard with the time differences. But glad we're finally chatting.
likewise. Yeah, thank you. I was going to say, I picked up on an accent. I thought it was maybe from the South.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's yep,
Tennessee, somewhere in there, right?
yep. No, born and bred in Melbourne, Australia.
Very cool.
But yeah, look, Roger, thank you for joining us at DC Comics News here.
Absolutely.
We've got Roger Craig Smith, talented voice actor. Thank you for your
That's
time.
debatable. That's debatable. We'll just
It's-
stick with voice actor.
well, we're fans of your work, Roger. So
Oh, good. Okay.
and we think that we anticipate that quite a few of our fans like your work. So we wanted to have a chat with you about some of the wonderful things you've done over your career, and in particular some of your work that lines up with the DC universe.
Gotcha.
But just to start from somewhere, do you want to just give us an introduction and a bio on you and where you've come from and what your history is?
Oh gosh. Well, that's the pressure's on. Roger Craig Smith, male, 39 years old, Los Angeles area. I like long walks on the beach and drunk snuggling. I don't know. Is that about covered? No. You know what? My background. It's a good question because there's so many different ways in which people kind of get started in this business. A lot of folks in voice acting always hear from people wanting to know, how do you get started and what do you do? And the reality is there's no one particular way that anybody gets started. Everybody's got a different path. My sort of introduction into voiceover was doing stand-up and like sketch comedy and stuff like that, like sort of before, during, and after college, and having people not necessarily remark on my comedy, but ask where I did, if I was doing voiceovers and that kind of thing, because I did characters and voices in my act, and then I would also MC certain events, and you do private events and you run like an auction, so they would hear you use your speaking voice, and then you would do characters and voices, and so they just kept asking about that, and that's literally for me how it began. I kept hearing people just say, "Hey, have you ever thought about voiceover?" So I started Googling it and eventually took some classes and never looked back. It was like a perfect fit between all the things I had gone to school for a degree in screenwriting, and it really kind of satisfied my interest in terms of writing. As well as the performing elements. I had a background in musical theater as a little kid and all that. So it just sort of became this weird little, wow, I wasn't expecting this. I had no intention of pursuing this as a career. And then it just happened to start kind of becoming one. And I thought, well, holy cow, I'm going to, the goal was to just be a part of productions in any way, shape, or form and be a part of this industry. And I found my little niche and have been very, very fortunate and very lucky that it worked out the way that it did.
So, Roger, as a voice actor, how many different projects would you be working on at once? Is it normally one whole project and then you jump onto something else, or are you actually doing a couple of different projects at once? What's the life of a voice actor like in that regard?
You know what? I mean, it depends on really where everybody's kind of got their sort of their niche, I guess. I've been very lucky in the fact that I've been able to book work in a lot of different sort of facets of the industry. So I've been able to do retail work, animation work, narration work, promo work, and being able to do that many different types of jobs has enabled me to stay consistently busy. It typically is 5 days a week for me, multiple sessions each day. And I know that that's somewhat unique to some folks. And even then I'm not as busy as others are. But typically, I mean, if you're doing it right, you're spending at least a portion of your day sort of hedging your bets on the next job by auditioning. So you're submitting auditions and then you're also working. And typically the hours go from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. With 2 4-hour sessions. If you're doing let's say you're just doing video games, they usually book about a 4-hour session for a video game. And if you had two video games in one day, you'd do 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and then 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. But on my day today, actually started with a session for a retail advertiser. At 7 a.m., I was connected via ISDN from my home studio. Worked from 7 to 8. Hopped in the car, drove down to Ventura Boulevard, did a video game from 9 to 1. Came home and did 2 episodes of narration for a sort of DIY home improvement series that I narrate on DIY Network HGTV. And quickly banged out a promo for ABC Family with an ISDN session after that, and then I've got my interview with you and another one at 5:30 my time. So it's a full day, but it's the joke is always that it beats working for a living, as the saying has been said, because the quote that I always like is the acquisition of the work is the work, getting the work is the work. The work itself is usually a lot of fun, even if you're just doing retail advertising. It's still fun. It's kind of a trip to hear your voice on TV or hear your voice on the radio or play a video game and go, no way, I did that voice, or man, I said all those weird lines. I don't even remember saying that stuff, but or hearing it and going, oh, I would have done that better had I had the chance, or that kind of thing. So yeah, it really, and then it's feast or famine. I mean, I've had a week recently where I literally had like 0 bookings. I had some that were on the calendar and they all got released. And I just found myself going, how funny. I have a week of really no major consistent work. And then you'll have weeks where you want to pull your hair out because you just don't know how you're going to get it all fit in. You'll go work from 9 to 6 and you'll come home and you have a stack of things you got to get to, that night. And all you want to do is maybe, pop open a beer and just relax. But you've got work to do, because if you don't get it done that night, you're not going to be able to get it done the next day because you're booked solid again. So it's very volatile and it's very up and down, but it definitely keeps you intrigued and interested. Doesn't get boring, that's for sure.
So busy doesn't tend to explain the overall facets of a voice actor like yourself, and I think it's intriguing. I mean, particularly when we look at some of your work here. If we delve into some of the DC related work, I'm particularly interested in your work that you've done as Batman. Batman is such an iconic character in the DC industry, and the character is pretty much the cornerstone of a lot of the work that and the content that we build out for our fans on DC Comics News and Dark Knight News. You've played the voice of Batman for Batman Unlimited, Animal Instincts, and Monster Mayhem.
Yes.
If I'm correct. Let's talk a little bit about Batman Unlimited and that series. That series, correct me if I'm wrong, is aimed towards a younger market. And I've seen bits and pieces of it myself, and we've written content and articles on it, and fans are interested. Can you take us through how that opportunity landed for you?
You know what, that was, I mean, when you say that opportunity sort of landed for me, it was just as baffling to me that I would get a chance to do Batman again after Arkham Origins. It was, I looked at it like, it's such a coveted sort of role to get to portray at any point in any way, shape, or fashion. And the notion that I was going to get a chance to do something after Origins was just, I was beside myself. And I'm fairly certain it was just the same old sort of, you audition for it or they submit you. And there's a number of different voice actors that have done the voice of Batman throughout the years. Even one of my co-stars on Batman Unlimited, Will Friedle, has been the voice of Batman in the past. So it's it was kind of an embarrassment of riches to have somebody come forward and say like, hey, you're going to get to do Batman again for this. What is not necessarily marketed towards a younger audience as much as it is family friendly, which inherently basically means it's basically safe for kids. And so as a result, it's going to be a little bit, maybe a little bit more, a little bit geared more towards a younger audience, for lack of a better way of saying it. Just because you're not going to find the sort of some of the more maybe adult sort of undertones and things like that exist in, like the video games, or even some of the previous sort of animated work that's been done, and especially in comparison to the live action stuff. And so essentially, Wes Gleason, our voice director, had approached me and just started to check avails on this, and we showed up and started talking about what it was going to be, and we worked a little bit on kind of modifying this version of Batman compared to what we had done for, say, Arkham Origins. And keeping in mind that it's a less sort of, not aggressive, but just a less a kinder, gentler Batman, if you will. by comparison to some other versions, with the hope being that, I forget, I think Will Friedle had said that, oh man, I forget who it was that had coined the phrase, but said that there should be a Batman for everyone. And what I like about that, and what I think it's very smart for companies like DC to do, is to generate content that can be enjoyed by a younger audience, so that they can understand why their big brother, their dad, their uncle, their aunts, their sisters, their moms are so geeky about all things DC. Like why do so many people wear this T-shirt with a Batman logo on it? What's so cool about Batman? And if they don't get a chance to be introduced to it at that age, when I think arguably everybody who's an adult that's a fan of this sort of stuff, they're that way because of something that they experienced when they were younger. And so to be able to be a part of something like that, in terms of like being the voice of Batman for Batman Unlimited, Animal Instincts and Monster Mayhem, is awesome, knowing that little kids are going to get to watch this with their families. And some of the best feedback I receive on Twitter or through email is people saying like, hey, I watched this with my little girl, or watched this with my little boy, and we had such a nice time. And it was nice to be able to sit there and not worry about what might be coming on the screen, because we know that we're watching a family-friendly version of Batman. And it's not to say that adults won't also appreciate it, but obviously you have to take sort of you got to take precaution with certain content when it comes to something for little kids, that little kids could be watching. And so we make it so that it's like, look, the family's going to get a kick out of this. The adults are going to understand some of the jokes that are maybe flying over the heads of the kids. The kids are going to love all the action, all the comedy, all the characters, and the animation style. So it's definitely it's an honor to be a part of something like that, introducing a younger, newer audience in a family-friendly fashion to this character that, like you said, has such a history, is so iconic to all things DC.
Yeah, look, and I think I can resonate with some of what you've said there. I mean, I for myself, I've always loved Batman, and I'm a huge fan. I've got a 2-year-old boy who, little Eric, he's starting to get into Batman now, and he sees the stuff I wear, and he sees the collectibles I've got, and I've introduced him to Batman Unlimited, and you're right. It draws people together, that whole experience and that new persona of an iconic character to be able to build something and introduce it to the new generation coming through, I think is absolutely, it's very warming, and it's really important to some of the older generation like us that have been part of such an iconic character. So I think, with continuing on with Batman, you were making points about Arkham Origins, and if we switch over to the more serious persona of Batman, and such an iconic series of video games, with what Rocksteady have done with Arkham Asylum, Arkham City. Arkham Origins came into the story and took us all the way back to where it all starts for Bruce Wayne and Batman.
Yep.
And look, I read a lot of reviews about Arkham Origins. I played the game myself, and we reviewed it as a site, and there were some controversial, I think, reviews about where that game sat as far as the other ones. I personally absolutely loved it, because I like it when when an origin is created on a character, and they give you a unique story, and they go to the effort to explain to you where something starts from. Everything's got a starting point. So as far as gaming and really bringing that to life, what did it mean to you to actually play Batman in that world? Can you express what that meant to you?
I mean, it was such an unbelievable opportunity, and it was one mixed with sort of trepidation and elation all at the same time when I booked it, because both Troy and I had started talking about knowing that everybody was going to be focusing their attention, because it basically had that Arkham name, on what we were doing in comparison to, say, Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. And so we were sitting there thinking, well, it's going to be simultaneously sort of unfair, but we get it, because both Troy and I grew up with the animated series, knowing Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill as these voices, and the legacy that they created as actors in these roles, is you can't come close to emulating it or even trying to impersonate it. And yet we knew that we were going to have to do something that was going to be kind of close to as Troy put it, the performances that both Kevin and Mark had sort of established were going to be like points on a horizon that we had to be mindful of, and trying to make sure that what we were doing was sort of conceivably, believable, that this version of Batman could become that version of Batman, since it was sort of going back in time. So it was a challenge and an opportunity at the same time. And halfway through, I was still thinking, at any given moment, they could decide that this just isn't working, or that I'm not the right guy for the role, or who knows. I mean, I approach every single role that way. It's like at any given moment, the carpet can get yanked out from underneath you. And we spent, I would say, probably the first 3 weeks, or the first week, I should say, of sessions. We were really just kind of playing around with the voice print of this version of Batman, because we were trying to emulate and incorporate both elements of the live action Christian Bale versions, even some of the Michael Keaton stuff, and as well as the animated series and the performances that people knew from the Arkham series of games, which was Kevin and Mark. And so we were trying to, without it sounding like we're doing impersonations of exactly what they do, because otherwise, why would you have us? You might as well just go get them to go do exactly what they do. But given that it was an origin story, I think they wanted to kind of have a little bit more of an element of a little bit of a difference and a little bit more of a youthful sound to it, as opposed to having them try to sound like younger versions of themselves, which might start to feel pushed or forced, or who knows. So yeah, it was like the notion that we were going to be doing something that's both challenging and risky, was exhilarating, and it was one of those things where you thought, well, until they start hearing a couple cutscenes and hearing what we're doing, I think they'll understand. And boy, do I totally understand what it's like when somebody takes something that you love so much, which is these characters, and messes with it. It's a very unsettling feeling. You feel like it's somehow going to betray, your love of that character if the company that's involved with it, does something to harm it. And I, we live in a very interesting time with social media and whatnot, that people can sound off so quickly and can have a knee-jerk reaction to something before it's really kind of come to fruition and really, you've seen its execution in its entirety. They can basically say, like, I don't like this, I hate this, it's gonna be terrible. And for companies to kind of keep still, trudging forward with that, I think is brave, and it's an exciting time to be a part of projects like that, because you've got so much of a challenge to kind of win over the existing audience, but also hopefully introduce a different audience to it as well, because we want to keep the franchises alive. We want to keep them thriving. So yeah, it was definitely one of those things where, like, wow, I booked it. Oh no, I booked it. It's like, this could go a lot of different ways, and there's so little that we as voice actors really contribute in some ways. Meaning that, like, at least the percentage of our contribution, while it's sometimes the most audible, and yes, it can absolutely ruin a game if you've got terrible voice acting, but at the end of the day, we go in and do what we do, and then it gets taken by lots of other people, very talented people, who take it and plug it into the game and add vocal effects and do different things to it, and they can edit the timing of your performance, they can modify your performance in lots of ways, and so it's such a collaborative effort. It's always kind of like nerve-wracking to be a part of these things, because you just go in and go, here's what I'm going to try to do, because this is what the director's asking me to do, and I hope I make the director happy, and then I go home. And then they take that and they send it off to the company who builds this character. They animate, they do different writing, they do different, all sorts of different things to it. And it's so you really don't know what you've got until that game comes out and you pop it in your console and start playing.
Yeah, look, and I think voice actors today, when you overlay what a voice actor creates over a character that you can control as a gamer, so for me, I think it's so powerful, because when you've got an actor on screen that like a Christian Bale or a Ben Affleck, and they are Batman, you're sitting there and you're watching, you're being entertained. But when you jump into a video game, you've got that interactive experience. I think the voice of a character can be so special and can be so powerful, because it becomes part of you as the gamer, because you're the one controlling the character, you're the one that's moving the character around and deciding what to do next. So throughout that experience with Arkham Origins, I mean, it sounds like you went through various iterations over the first 2-3 weeks to get that persona right. You were talking about, you don't get to see the finished product until you plug the game into the console and you have a look. Was there any interactive feedback, I guess, throughout the creation of that game where they came back to you and they said, hey, here is what it looks like at this point in time. Here's a cut scene, or here's a particular important moment in the game. Do you get to see that as a voice actor, or is it more they go away, they do everything after you've done your work, and then you see everything in its entirety?
Typically, I mean, like it really just depends on the production company and budgets. I think it really just kind of boils down to if they have the budget to. I mean, this is not an inexpensive industry, and production takes a lot of capital, and so if you're going to rent out a studio again and get an engineer and be on a lot and do all these different things, it's going to cost a lot of money just to have an actor, go in and make some grunts and sounds to clean things up. But thankfully, with Arkham Origins, they actually gave us the opportunity to go back just before submitting a final sort of version of the game and go in and look at a lot of the different cutscenes and see if we wanted to add any sort of minor movement sounds, any breathing, any sort of a grunt or an effort, anything like that, which I always think adds just that extra little bit of that immersive sort of experience. If you feel like you see Batman grab onto Deathstroke and shove him against the wall, and if there's no even just the slightest little bit of from Batman, it just seems kind of disconnected. Well, they gave us a chance to go back and watch the cutscenes of like fights and sort of setups to boss battles and whatnot, and add any little bits and sounds that we wanted to. And I think that really kind of helps. And it also goes to show the care and concern that these companies will take with their product. To go back in and do that, because they know that in the end that's what's going to help with the fans' experience of being immersed in the game, and we got a chance to do that with this one, which is very rare, because I've also done some where you're lucky if you have an employee of the game company there, and you don't even know what it is that you're recording sometimes, or you don't understand the context of stuff, and they haven't given you, like you said, any sort of like line direction as to why am I saying what I'm saying in response to whatever. Sometimes you have scripts that are just your lines with no preceding dialogue from another character, so you don't even know why you're responding. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's sometimes how it is. And so you really don't know the finished product until you get to go see what it is that everyone who's passionate about these things has worked so hard to sort of create. So it's I've had a lot of people ask, how do you come up with the voice? And I always say, I don't. I've learned very, very early on that being overly prepared for a particular role usually works against me, because I might go in with a specific choice, and I get into the booth and I wow them with my brilliant choice, and they go, oh yeah, actually no, we're gonna make them British, and you go, oh shoot, okay, I guess I'll do the British accent now. It's like you have no idea what, because you're there as a hired gun and you are a member of a production team, you don't know what everybody wants to sort of create, and it's not your game, it's not your character, you don't own it, you don't write for it. You're not paying the rent on that studio and all that. So you walk in and you just kind of are like, hey, what do you guys want me to do? Hopefully I'm going to be that big old lump of clay for you, and you guys can sort of shape me into what it is that you want this character to be. And vocally, I hope I can achieve that for you.
So looking back on Arkham Origins, one last question on this. What was your favorite part of that persona? Is there a particular cutscene or a particular moment in the game that you can hang your hat on and say, I'm so proud of this particular moment in the game? Do you have a favorite component?
For the sheer like tough guy, like cool, what I liked about the sort of like origin element of this version of Bruce Wayne Batman was, my favorite little scene is when he's talking to Slade, and that one line that he just, what was it like? He's like, I don't play games, Slade. And it was this, I think that's what was it like? I don't play games. Yeah, it was something to that degree where it was just like super cool Batman line for him to say, like, I'm not playing around here. But my absolute favorite element to the entire origin story was actually the relationship between Alfred and Bruce. And that the moment where Bruce is basically, to me, it's what Origins was really kind of all about, which was Batman learning all sorts of lessons, or I should say Bruce Wayne learning all sorts of lessons about, hey man, you might have the money and you might have the skills and you might have the anger, but you do have to rely on others, and you need to be an asset as well as as a leader. And so you've got to, again, it's kind of like production. You got to work together, got to have a collaborative effort to succeed. And there was the moment where, Bruce Wayne is basically asking Alfred, who do you see when you look at me? Do you see that little boy whose shoes he used to tie, who's going out for his first prom and, first date? That to me was such a poignant moment between the two of them, because it was Batman saying, I got this, like, you don't need to baby me anymore. But he was also doing it in such a baby-like fashion, sort of throwing a little bit of a tantrum to Alfred, who, Alfred at all points in time always has Bruce Wayne's best interest in mind. And I thought, what a neat thing that they wrote. And we tried to spend as much time as we could on that, because I felt like that to me is everything that the origin story was all about. It was Batman discovering more about himself, really and truly, not so much about the Joker. I think it's more about recognizing his own weaknesses and where he's vulnerable, which I thought was a really neat sort of thing to incorporate into a video game.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes the character so intriguing. It's the fact that relationship between him and Alfred, it humanizes the character so much. And in 2014, if we jump forward a little bit, you also came back and did Batman for the DLC called Cold Heart. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
So can you briefly just talk us through that experience? Was there anything majorly different when you came back again for that popular DLC?
Not necessarily. I mean, it was the approach was still fairly straightforward, and it wasn't too long after we had released the game that we went right back into the studio to kind of prepare that stuff. I mean, I know, I'm always baffled by how these game companies, they have a calendar and they know exactly what they're going to do and when they're going to execute this and launch that, and you're usually, as an actor, one of the last people to find out, and it's by design, and I get that they're protecting their intellectual property, they're not wanting spoilers to get out, that kind of thing. But no, the approach was really just, it was really the same, in terms of we kind of knew which version of Batman we were doing at that point, so we were all pretty comfortable with it. I wish I had, some sort of drama to report, but it was really kind of more just a straightforward, here we go again. And again, I was just like thrilled to be back in the booth and getting a chance to do it.
And continuing on with the DC universe, you've also done some work with Lego Batman 3, Batmite, Riddler. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Can you take us through some of that? That the Lego Batman series is such a popular series, and I think it resonates with such a wide scope of audience, everything from parents to kids to teenagers. Can you take us through some of that?
Well, you know what? Like, the Lego games and what they do and what they create are they're so fun, because I mean, like, much like, Batman Unlimited, what we're doing with that series of films is playing around in that universe a little bit more, and yet maybe not taking itself quite as serious as it does at other times. And especially with the Lego series of games, they almost lampoon so many different pop culture things, including their own building block system. It's what I love about the Lego version of games is always the writing, and obviously getting to be a part of that again, and getting to come in as Batmite, which I thought was really kind of funny, and the Riddler. That was sort of another little little add-on kind of a thing. But what a trip! What an honor again. You're just happy. I mean, a lot of people are like, well, once you've been Batman, you've got to keep doing it, don't you? And I just go, no, that's not how my business works. And if I get a chance to do it, that's awesome. But you can't think that way. You've got to just be happy that the phone rang. And if somebody says, hey, we want you to come in on this DC project, and you're like, what is it? And they go, it's a Lego Batman. And you're thinking, oh, did Troy step down? do I get to be Bat? And they're like, no, you're gonna be Batmite. And you're like, okay, cool. I'm happy with that. Yeah, I'm happy to work again. I just want to come back in and be a part of this stuff. So being a part of any quality production is such an honor. And the Lego Batman version of games, I think what everybody loves about it is you have it's almost like you've got such a perfect character to sort of to make fun of with Batman, because he's so serious all the time, right? He doesn't patter, and he's I'm very serious all the time, and I'm down get the job done. And so you've got all this silliness kind of going on around him, and I think fans really like that, because it still pays homage to the character, but it's something, like you said, the whole family can get around, pick up a controller. I mean, I've I've played these games with, with my mother, and my nieces, sitting in the room, and we all start cracking up because it's just the writing's good and it's a fun game, and who doesn't love Legos? So, it's a perfect marriage. You've got this dark knight, this serious character who's this tiny little Lego guy, and it's super funny. And then getting to be the Batmite and really just irritate everybody's ears with that harshly annoying little character was a blast.
Yeah, look, I think it puts a smile on everyone's face. Like you're saying, you've got a super serious Batman in a cosmetically colourful, beautiful
Yep.
world that's all fun and games. And yeah, it's like I've had a giggle myself with playing with my kids. I've got a 7-year-old daughter, and she loves playing it. And like you're saying, it really brings the family together. So being part of that and doing that is great. There was also some work that you've done with Young Justice, Ocean Master. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, but you're going back, man. Oh man. I'm trying to think.
I did my research.
Yeah, no, you're not messing around. And yes, I had done that. I think it was maybe a 1 episode, 2 episode arc. But it's funny. Maybe it was 3. I don't even remember. I mean, one of the weird things about this industry, so often you go in, and again, because you're so focused on acquiring more work, you'll go in and do a job, and then because this is animation, sometimes it doesn't come out for a year or two before after you've already done the recording session. So you can very easily. And I hate disappointing people at conventions and whatnot when they go like, hey, you did this voice of this thing, and in this game. Can you do it for me right now? And you just go, I don't remember how he sounds. And because to them, it means something, to them, it's like their favorite character. And to you, you never want to say like, it's just a job, but it was at some point, it was a gig that you were very happy to have booked and very happy to have worked. And you try to do what you can to, please the production folks that are there that day. And then once you're done with it, it's like you move on. You've got other work to do, or other work to try to go and get. So it's kind of funny. I know exactly what you're talking about, Ocean Master, and I can't for the life of me remember even the story arc or anything like that. But I know that to be a part of that series was also another huge opportunity. It's an honor anytime you have any of these large companies call you up and offer you something, or if you audition and you book it, you just are constantly amazed that you get to work again. So it was I remember Ocean Master though. That's so funny. Well done, sir. Well done.
So if we were to imagine that you were given the opportunity to take a pick of being the voice actor for a DC character of your choice, whether it was a villain or a hero, if you could pick from that whole universe, is there a particular character that you haven't done that you'd love the opportunity to do?
It's so hard to say. I mean, like it's really hard to say because I mean, man, I've gotten to be Batman.
It's the pinnacle. I've done it.
It's kind of like, I would imagine it's kind of like, if you climb the highest mountain, then you look around and go like, well, now what? So it's not to say that anything would be a step down, but it is one of those things where it's such a dream come true to get to voice this character. Because it's who so many people think of. If you think of DC, I think of Batman. I mean, many people think of Superman, but for me, it's like, no, I think of Batman. And it just depends on which side of that coin you favor. But no, I don't know. I love playing bad guys, but I don't know which bad guy I would want to be. The Riddler's a lot of fun, but he's not that easy. He's kind of he's up there with the Joker in some ways, where he's kind of kooky. But no, I don't know. I mean, I've always just said, like, getting to be Batman was an incredible honor, and it's an absolute dream come true. So once your dream has come true, you're just kind of like, when somebody says like, what other dreams do you have? You just want to go, I don't feel the need to.
I've achieved my dream.
Yeah, it's like the dream was met. So like now it's like, no, that dream came true. I'm thrilled. It's that's why I said, like, even if Origins was one and done, I could look back on my career and just go, I did it. I got to be Batman. Holy cow. I can't believe I got to be Batman. Yeah, right. Or at least, it's never that way when I look in the mirror, but it's definitely fun to just think, well, as far as my career and my industry goes, getting a shot at doing that, huge honor and an absolute blast. So can't complain. But no, I don't know. I've often thought about that, and I actually try not to think about it, because then you start coveting something that you might never achieve. So it's more like, hey, if the opportunity comes and I submit on it and I feel like it's in my wheelhouse and I feel good about it, well, so be it.
So, amongst some of the things that you do as far as personal hobbies, you enjoy mountain biking, you play video games.
Yep.
Give us a favorite video game that you're playing at the moment, just so we can get to know you a little bit better.
You know what's funny? Like lately, it's like I go back to playing old school things. One of my absolute favorite of all time was Portal. I thought that game was a phenomenal game in terms of like what really good a really good blending of both storytelling, gameplay, writing, all that can be. It was just such a phenomenally well executed game in so many ways. It was slowly revealing story elements and giving you background on character without it being expository and all these these tools that are used in storytelling that sometimes are taken advantage of and make for a very like clunky way of getting the information across. I thought Portal did a phenomenal job, but lately, I because I've been working, which is a nice problem to have, I haven't had those binge nights where I'm able to stay up till 4 a.m. and just play through an entire series of a game or whatever. Lately I've been just kind of using gaming as a sort of release, and therefore anything that's overly challenging or overly frustrating for me, I tend not to start. And anything that's overly cinematic, I can't get into just yet. So I've been going back and playing like Grand Theft Auto 5 with a bunch of buddies. Every now and then we'll all just kind of connect and go do sort of like these crew heist missions and all that kind of stuff. So we're going back to a game that's, that came out, I think, roughly around the same time that Origins did. But so we go back and play stuff like that, or I'll play Halo with my brother, or
Halo's awesome.
Exactly. But it's just fun to kind of go back in, because we'll get into like create our own little room and just play rockets only and just keep blowing each other up, over and over and over again, and just having a blast and hanging out and just sort of disconnecting from the world and not necessarily getting overly immersed into some deep storyline. I've got a stack of games. I mean, I still haven't even finished like The Last of Us, and my buddy Troy's working that is stellar, and it's there's so many games that I've got such good friends that have done such incredible work, and you want to play through it to kind of experience like the joy that they had and the pride that they were able to take in their work, and I haven't had the time lately. So it's kind of funny. I find myself like flipping on the I was doing platformers there for a while.
Yeah.
What was the Ori and the Enchanted? No, what was it? Ori, Legend of Ori. I'm going to script the name. That one kind of had me hooked, for a few nights while I would just sort of sit down, and instead of turning on the TV and watching the news and getting depressed or angry, I figured, you know what, I'll just pop in this little platformer and kind of disconnect from the world. So yeah, it's I mean, I people often ask, like, do you play the games you're in? And I say absolutely. I buy every single game, whether or not I get a free copy from the production company or not. I always buy every game that I'm in and play it because I want to see. It's sort of a disconnected experience on my end. I don't do full body motion capture, so I don't do any performance capture in that regard. So I don't really immerse myself in the same way that some other actors get a chance to do with certain characters. But it's and so they live it in almost every sense of the word. I show up and I'm providing the voice, so it's all theater of the mind for me. And so when I get a chance to actually watch or interact with what everybody's created, I jump at the chance to do that. But sometimes I'll only get a few nights of me gaming in a game that I've actually been the voice of. It's a trip before you're off to auditioning for the next one or traveling to go promote that game or whatever it might be.
We've also we've got here that you're an active supporter of Seacrest Studios, and you've done. There's a wonderful story here. You've done some work at the Children's Hospital Orange County.
Yes.
Do you mind just taking us through a quick snapshot of some of that work? Because I just think, we've got people in the roles that people like yourself that are in roles that can really lead by example, and for comic book fans that look up to people like you that do the work that you do, you've got the opportunity to do great things, and this is a great story. So I think it's great to let our fans know some of the work you've done here.
Well, you know what? So I was based in Orange County and Children's Hospital Orange County. I went to junior high and high school with a buddy that I went to high school with. Is named Antoine. And he suffered from sickle cell anemia for a long time. And I remember going and visiting CHOC, which is, we always know it as CHOC, because CHOC, Children's Hospital Orange County, and going and visiting CHOC, in like high school, and seeing what it was like for a young person to be in a hospital. And also just, I remember like it had an impact on me, because it was sort of frightening, in one way. Because at a time in your life when you don't, every teenager that isn't dealing with any sort of a health issue feels invincible. And then going in and seeing a friend who very clearly wasn't invincible, it was sort of like, it's giving me pause to kind of go, wow, okay, holy cow, I'm learning some lessons right now.
Yeah.
But what I walked away from that was the staff and the experience that they were providing for my buddy when he was there. And I just remember thinking, like, it's not like your typical doctor. Like, it was a very casual sort of environment. There was a lot of stuff to do. And as I got older, and then I finally started getting involved more with voiceover and entertainment, I had a friend who, she was an event planner, and she was doing something for the Children's Hospital. And it was very early on in my career, and back then it wasn't Seacrest Studios yet. It was Radio Lollipop, which I think is also still an organization that does different things at different children's hospitals. And it was, they were doing this event. My buddy was playing acoustic guitar there, and we showed up, and musicians had shown up to play for the kids, and they were doing this big event. And I just remember thinking, this is so neat that there are people out there that can do this and provide a little bit of happiness for kids that they don't want to be inundated with the day in and day out sort of struggle and sadness of their situation. And that's what children's hospitals do so well, which is to provide a little bit of levity and a little bit of, hey, let's enjoy this experience of what, entertainment has to offer and of what being a kid should be. And so they had all these people that were showing up and doing all these things. And I thought, if I want to get involved, I didn't have any sort of income to donate at the time. And I thought, but what I could do is I could show up someday and just, I could do my character voices. I could tell stories. We could do like a story time kind of thing. And so back at Radio Lollipop, I had shown up and worked with a DJ, and I was their guest for the day. And I showed up, and I think I donated a couple early games that I had been in, and then was able to just do this story time thing. And it became something where I thought, it's so hard to feel a way of like, quote unquote, giving back. When you have such a fun job and such a really and truly kind of silly and frivolous in a lot of ways, because you're just going in as a grown up and making little cartoon voices and whatnot. So it's hard to feel like, whoa, I'm certainly doing the Lord's work, aren't I? But being able to go in and do the voices in an era, like in a way that still kind of keeps that fantasy alive, is an absolute just an honor to be able to do something like that, and to have a kid respond to it or that kind of thing is it really kind of touches you, because it reminds you of, you can get very wrapped up and very caught up in the minutia of sort of the day-to-day just crud of this industry and the work, because it needs to be work to you. But you can forget that these things have an impact on kids, and especially kids that are maybe having a little bit more of a struggle than some of their friends are. To give them a chance to have some happiness or whatnot. Getting a chance to jump at that. And Seacrest Studios has done a phenomenal job. I mean, the facility that they have at CHOC is second to none. They have a green screen, and for those who don't know what it is, basically it's like a radio and TV station that basically broadcasts just within the hospital. And the folks that volunteer for this are like, they're the real superheroes. They have just such big hearts, and I've been there and experienced parents that were going through a really torturous time, and dealing with so many horrible things that that their children are having to endure, and they can request something as basic as a song, and have a DJ get on the radio. As far as the kids are concerned, it's a radio station, and the DJ will dedicate it to them, or my favorite thing as a voice actor is not to do the voice in front of someone, because it's usually very unsettling to see the 5'5" unshaven guy that just is looking scraggly and gray haired, doing the voice of your favorite prince, or it's like, Batman's really short, isn't he? But to be able to do it in that medium and to have it be audible, keeps that fantasy alive. And so it's neat to get to go in and it's the one charity that I support annually, and try to arrange things to the projects that I work on. I try to get clearance from different companies, to say, hey, I would like to go in and we can do some stuff. And if you have any swag that we could bring along, to give to the kids, they always really appreciate that. So yeah, it's been one of those things. It's just a nice opportunity to have to be a part of something like that.
Yeah, look, I mean, being a parent myself, I think for you can only imagine what parents would go through when they're sick children or children that are having a bit of a hard time. So
Yep.
I think it's absolutely amazing and wonderful, some of the work that you've done there, and something that we wanted to share with our fans. A couple of concluding questions. I mean, for any one of our fans out there that are thinking about being a voice actor, is there any advice, Roger, that you'd give people that are wanting to move into the industry that you're in?
It's funny, like I've been asked this throughout the years, and for the longest time, I've always just felt like, oh, I'm in no position to answer that. But really and truly, what I have learned, and the response that I've been giving lately is just, you're never going to have my career. And when I say that, I mean, I'm never going to have your career. It's everybody that's gotten wherever they are in this industry has such a vastly different story about how they got involved, or what led them to where they are. And the one sort of through sort of connecting element is that everybody earned it. They went out and did things that put them in a position of being able to take advantage of the luck. A lot of people think that it's just, oh, you got lucky, and yes, there is an element of good fortune that you hope kind of shines down upon you at some point. But the reality is, I never would have gotten represented by my agency if I didn't go and take this particular class. Where my agency had a booth director that was there to quote unquote discover me, and it's like, yeah, the discovery was luck, but I had invested, some hard-earned money into taking this particular voiceover class, and had no intention of getting an agency out of it. But guess what happened? And it's it's that earning, investing in yourself, and understanding that it's like your process is going to be just that. It's just going to be a process. There is no one book to go read. There is no one film to go watch. There is no one class to go take. There is no one. I've had people say, like, is this a good college for voice acting? And I just go, there is no such thing, other than the college of life. I mean, is really what's going to help you with voice acting. I mean, acting's acting. It's character development. It's all those different things. So yeah, there's no one bit of advice other than never be ashamed to be where you're at, and never lose sight of always wanting to move beyond where you're at. The notion, I mean, that's a metaphor for all sorts of things. A lot of people, I think, make the mistake of saying, once I blankety blank, then I'll be blank. And it's like, once I buy that sports car, then I'll be happy. Once I buy those super cool shoes, then I'll be cool, whatever it might be. But the reality is, once you've achieved whatever it is that you thought you were, striving for, the view has changed, and you're gonna have a completely different perspective on what it is that you're doing and what you want to do from there. And being comfortable with that, and knowing that, like, yeah, I'm going to fall. I'm going to hopefully keep falling forward, learn from my mistakes, and go out and earn this. And knowing that sometimes weekly it's going to change. Your perspective will constantly be in flux. And so to tell somebody, like, go educate yourself. Yes, these are all sound, good principles and good advice. Yeah, go take a class in voiceover. Go get your demo done. Don't take a class where somebody offers you a demo at the end of the class, because if you're not ready for a demo, the last thing you want is your information and your vocal business card being presented before you're ready. But beyond all that, even those things are reparable. If you made that mistake and you put your stuff out there too soon, you can pull back, change your name. I don't know. Everything's sort of, got a fix to it. But the life lessons that you're going to learn along the way are part of the most important element to this stuff. So it's like, I've just gotten comfortable telling people, like, hey, it's weird to think that someone would want to emulate anything that I've done, but you're never going to have it. You're never going to be Roger Craig Smith. And I'm also never going to be the next Damien. I'm never going to be the next Troy Baker. I'm never going to be the next Nolan North or Laura Bailey or Jennifer Hale or, I mean, you name it. There's so many different people that, you know, they've all got something that's uniquely them. You got to be that person to show that the rest of the world, like, hey, check out what I can do. And that comes from just kind of falling forward and working all the time and trying to make yourself available for those opportunities.
Yeah.
And being honest with yourself.
It's really what you make it, isn't it? I mean, what you put in what you put in is what you get out in certain facets. To conclude, I would absolutely love it, Roger, if you could give us the Batman persona for our fans. Is that something you can do for us?
Yes.
That'd be amazing.
We can do this.
Give us something, Batman. Give us a concluding line of advice.
Let's see. Trying to think of something funny to say, which is always going to ruin the character. Let's see, a good bit of advice.
Ask our fans to go to DC Comics News.
Go to DC Comics News. And remember, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey.
Absolutely.
Does that make any sense?
Absolutely love it, Roger. Absolutely.
So I'm wondering if righty-tighty, let's see. So if you have a screwdriver and a screw in Australia, this is like, does the toilet water flush in a different direction?
It does.
Type of debate.
It flows in the opposite direction.
Exactly. Now, are the screws also the same way in Australia? So is it actually lefty-tighty, righty-loosey?
I think if I'm imagining I've got one in my hand, so if I've got to tighten one, I'm going to tighten it lefty
to the right.
To the right. Yes.
Good.
That is right.
Then Batman's advice was sound.
Yes. I'm talking to the Batman. It's brilliant.
Lefty-tighty, righty-loosey just doesn't work. I'm also hoarse. That's, you know what's so funny is I never would have thought this, like in doing the Batman voice, working in your lower register like that was almost more taxing on my voice after 4 hours than doing sort of like normal register or even higher pitched, voices and characters for other different projects. And yeah, work, like I hear it right now and I go like, oh, it's not there. It's not as, I'm also sitting down. I should be standing, but I hear it and I go, oh no, that's not the right Batman. But it's funny because I'm all hoarse and I hear all that stuff. So yeah, it's, drink a lot of, there's another bit of advice. Drink a lot of fluid. Don't yell too much.
Drink water. H2O is good for you. Well, I can tell you the Batman persona absolutely sounded fantastic then. So I thought it was great.
Thank you.
If that's worth anything, I thought it was great. But Roger, we've talked for a long time, and I tell you what, we're going to put the whole interview online because I think it's been absolutely amazing. And,
thank you.
And I consider myself so lucky to talk to people like you doing what I do. So thank you so much for your time because it sounds like you're an incredibly busy man. So I really, really appreciate the time you've put into talking to us and being fan sites. We don't make any money. We make hardly any money, and it's by the fans for what we do. So our fans will really appreciate this when we put it online over the coming week. So Roger, thank you so much. And if we can, we'd love to stay in contact with your agency and yourself.
Absolutely. Damien, thank you. And thank you to all your followers. And thank you to literally the fans that support this stuff. I mean, it's definitely not lost on anybody who's involved in this from, be it a writer, be it a director, be it somebody in marketing, that we understand that at the end of the day, what we're doing is for the consumption of people who are passionate about these characters. And to have anybody reach out like yourself and want to listen to me blab about my my stupid stuff and try to make my lame jokes is very, very, very touching and very much appreciated. So thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
No problem at all. No problem at all. You have a great evening, Roger, and stay awesome.
Yeah, right on, dude. You as well. I don't know if I can stay. I hope to be awesome, and let alone stay. I'll just stay my dorky self, and hopefully awesomeness will be achieved at some point.
Well, good luck for everything in the future, and we hope to talk to you again soon.
Likewise. Thanks, Damien.
No worries, Roger. Thank you very much.
All right, be well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.